Hello everybody and welcome back to Expert Examiner IELTS. My name is Glyn and in this video we're going to do some more speaking feedback, this time on Hugo's speaking test. So let's get straight into it. Good afternoon, my name is Glyn. Would you please tell me your full name?
Okay. Good afternoon. My name is Hosselbeek and my surname is Valijon.
And what should I call you?
My friends call me Hugo, and also you can call me Hugo. Hugo is my nickname.
So, everything at the beginning of the test, what's your full name, what can I call you, is not part of the test. So we don't judge any mistakes here. We don't say, oh, that's nice. I like the way that he said, like, my friends call me Hugo. None of that is measured in the IELTS test. We just want to confirm your name and we just want to know, during the test, if I need to use your name, what should I use? So keep it short, right? Good morning, my name is Glyn. Can you tell me your full name? Bob Smith. And what should I call you? Bob. That's fine. We don't need anything else. But okay. Okay, thank you, Hugo. Now, in this first part of the test, I'm going to ask you some questions about yourself. Do you work or do you study?
Now I'm 16 years old, so that's why I study at school.
Okay, fine. I'm 16 years old. That's why I study at school. Perfect.
I'm
And
student.
and what subject? And this is another thing I notice with, especially online, candidates finish their turn, then I start to ask the next question, and then candidates add extra information. Probably it's some small delay. But yeah, once you finish your turn, you finish your turn. Subjects do you study at school?
Now I'm trying to learn math and English. And also, I can say that I'm good at math.
Okay. Only two subjects at school? I don't know, maybe that's normal. I guess when I was 16, 17, I only studied three subjects. History, French, and music at school. Yeah, maybe it's possible. Cool. I'm trying to study English and maths. Okay, fine. Okay.
Yeah,
And do you have a good relationship with your teachers?
yeah. Why not?
Nice intonation there. Yeah, why not? But I don't know about why not as an answer. Like, do you have a good relation? Yeah, why not? Why not is often, a response to like suggestions. Should we go to the cinema? Yeah, why not? I don't see any reason why we shouldn't do this. Do you have a good relationship with your teachers? Yeah, why not? I don't know. Why not? Just feels a little bit strange.
Teachers are very good and well experienced and well.
So teachers are very cute. No, cute is the wrong word here. I think you mean like pleasant or nice or kind or friendly. Cute is like what we use usually to talk about like appearance or behavior that is kind of like nice in a childlike way or an animal way. Like puppies are cute and babies are cute and weasels are cute. Teachers are cute and they are well experienced, I think he said. I don't know if that's like well educated because you can educate somebody well, but well experienced doesn't work because you can't experience somebody well. So that compound adjective of like well experienced, it's like, okay, it's a good attempt. They're suitably experienced or they are very experienced, fine. But well experienced, yeah, it's so the vocab is easy to understand. I see what he means, but it's awkward use of vocab.
Well educated, so that's why I have good relationship with my teachers at school.
Cool, again, we get that. That's why I'd be careful just not to overuse certain connectives. There is something written in the rubric about like candidates relying too much on the same type of connectives. Candidates use that's why a couple of times. Nothing wrong with that, but just be careful that we're not overusing. And what are you planning to do when you finish school?
As I said before, I'm
Cool. As I said before, I like that.
learning English, so maybe I will study abroad.
The language, the candidate produces language, but it never feels, massively comfortably. It always feels like there's a little bit of fighting in the candidate's mind about how to get that language out there. Just watch the response to this question again and notice, he's looking up and doesn't always produce the language like in a very natural, immediate way. Again, it's like his brain is doing a little bit of fighting before deciding on what language to use. When you finish school, watch this.
No,
As
I said before,
as I said before, comes out well.
I'm learning.
I'm learning. There's a bit of reformulation, and we don't want that at part one. Part one should be nice and easy and relaxing. There should be questions you've been asked before. What are you planning to do when you finish your studies? I'm thinking of moving abroad. I'm studying English at the moment, and I think this will help me. Nice, simple, easy, comfortable, natural language production.
English. So maybe I will study abroad.
So maybe I will study abroad. So this lack of fluency also affects the stress timing. So maybe I will study abroad. That type of pronunciation, that type of stress timing we associate with, trying to find the next word. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk about your hobbies and interests now. Do you have a lot of hobbies?
I wish I could say yes, but I can't.
I love that. I wish I could say yes, but I can't. Now, this might be a bit of memorized language, but it works wonderfully well here. It's technically, it is a complex grammatical structure. It's a second conditional, well, not a second conditional, but it's a wish construction. I wish I could wish plus past simple, but it kind of feels like a functional bit of language. So, it's both good for grammar, but mostly this is good for vocab. I wish I could say yes, but I can't. Really lovely bit of language there.
I just wanna pay attention to my.
Good use of wanna. I just wanna, but then he has to reformulate. I just wanna go back. I just want to pay attention to, and pay attention to is fine, but I think focus on or concentrate on, that's probably the best thing. I just want to focus on my studies. I just want to concentrate on my studies. Pay attention to, again, meaning is clear, but it's not, it's not exactly hitting the bullseye with vocab.
Trees if I have leisure time, and in some case, I play. I play.
So before the test, I asked the candidate to, make sure that he's in the middle of the camera, because at the beginning it was kind of like a little bit like this, and I don't like it when candidates are not in the middle. So I asked him, to move his camera and to make sure that it doesn't move, and so when the camera moves, I think he's just panicking a little bit. So this answer I will forget about.
Games.
You can see, right?
Sorry.
And yeah, so that answer, I will just forget about it. I won't judge it positively or negatively. Camera kind of fell. If you are going to do these practice speaking tests, dear candidates, please make sure that you have a stable camera where you can be seen. It's amazing some of the things that I have to remind people of. But anyway, let's keep going. What were some of your biggest interests when you were a child? Cool. So now we're going into pastime.
I can't remember when I was younger.
Cool. When I was younger, hitting that past very naturally.
So I really wanted to.
Cool. I really wanted to, hitting that past simple.
Play video games, and so that's why I think.
Game, we get that. That's why.
In my childhood, playing video games was one of the biggest hobby.
And again, this is part one, right? Part one, you should be relaxed here. There shouldn't be, if you're aiming for a high band one, we would expect A2s to really struggle with these questions. And we would expect B1s to be more or less comfortable with them. Sometimes candidates, they try too hard in part one to show off some stuff. And it leaves the impression that, like, wow, this person is struggling with part one. What were some of your interests when you were a child? Oh, when I was younger, I really liked playing video games. My favorite video game was Super Mario Brothers. It's a very simple game, but it's like really iconic. And still today, sometimes if I have some free time, I play this game. There you go. There's your answer. You don't need always like, so that's why yeah, I know this candidate speaks English well. I know that he knows English well. It's just I don't know why he's struggling so much in part one with quite easy questions like what were your interests when you were younger? I really liked playing football when I was younger. I used to play football with my friends every day after school. But I didn't just play football, I also watched football on TV. My favorite football team was, I don't know, Spartak Tashkent. I don't know if such a team Spartak Tashkent exists, but we don't. I don't know. Yeah, we don't need anything complicated in part one. And would you like to take up a new hobby in the future?
Yeah, why not? If I have a chance,
And you can see he's trying to activate this. Like, if I had a chance, because he's trying to be a good student. I guess his teacher has told him, like, okay, impress the examiner, use these things. Like, if I had a chance, I would try to. I just want to hear, yeah, I would like to in the future because I've always been interested in Actually, my also and this is another reason why I want to in the future. Simple, coherent, direct answers to questions. That should always be any candidate's foundation in the speaking test, making sure that your answers directly answer the question and then adding some polish. I feel like candidates are so focused on polish that they forget, polish is this thing we put on our shoes to make them shine, to make them look nice. But it's like so many candidates nowadays are coming with polish but no shoes. And it's like, well, what are you going to put that polish on? Not, I mean, this candidate's still answering questions on topic, but it is noticeable for me that he's speaking with difficulty. And I think possibly that's because he's focusing on polish.
if I had, if I
Notice that this is just a question. Would you like to try any new hobbies in the future? We shouldn't be struggling here. Yeah, I'd like to go skiing. I've never been skiing and I've seen it on YouTube many times. And I'm a kind of person that has good balance and I think it would be fun. And I think, yeah, feeling that wind in your face, that would be very nice. Or maybe even something simpler. Yeah, I would like to learn how to play the piano. I often listen to classical music and I love, people like Chopin and Beethoven, and the piano especially sounds beautiful. So I would like to do that. Simple, direct. Notice the answer again.
yeah, why not? If I have a chance,
So we get all of this padding.
if I have time,
What what would you like to do in the future? I would like to. I want to. I would love to. I'm hoping to.
I will add reading books every day,
Again, I would add reading books. Add.
like hobby as hobby.
And so we get no development, right? We get padding, 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 answer. But there's no development. There's no why. There's no what kind of books. It's just like, what would you like? Are there any hobbies you'd like to take up in the future? Oh, if I had time, if I have a chance, I think I will add reading books. It's like, start with the reading books. I'd like to read more books. Great. Forget about all of that stuff before. I'd like to read more books. Then tell me why you'd like to read more books. Tell me what books you'd like to read. Tell me if there's some authors that you'd like to read. Maybe tell me why you haven't started it yet. I'd like to read more books in the future, but right now I'm very busy with my studies. But who knows, maybe in 2 years I'll be able to do this more often. That's development. Development is not padding, 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 direct answer. Now, I know the candidate's young. The candidate is 16. The candidate speaks English well. Speaking to him before the test, after the test, I know that this candidate speaks English very, very well. It's just that his exam technique, I don't know. I don't know who his teacher is. I don't know how he prepares. But to me, it seems obvious that he's trying a little bit too hard. And as I mentioned many times on this channel, when you try too hard to be impressive with your language, in almost all cases, it makes your language worse than if you just went in prepared and just thought, what is the examiner asking? I'll answer directly and add information. And do you know anyone who has an unusual hobby or interest?
I think, unfortunately, no, I have no idea about it because people who are around
I have no idea about it. I don't know, but I have no idea about it. Maybe if it's a prediction, like how will technology change education in the future? I have no idea about it, but this isn't an. Do you know any? No, I don't. I'm sorry.
me, they are like-minded, so like-minded people. So that's why their hobbies the same with mine.
Okay, their hobbies are the same as mine, not the same with, but okay. Let's move on then and talk about supermarkets. Do you have a lot of supermarkets near you?
So I live in countryside, so that's why
Countryside. I know we write it like countryside, but countryside, countryside.
there 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 are two or three supermarkets, if I'm not mistaken.
Like this, if I'm not mistaken, Canada does have some nice bits of functional language in there. And how often do you go to the supermarket?
Every day I go to supermarket because
Stress timing's a bit of every day I go to the supermarket. Every day I go to the supermarket. Stress, yeah, the sentence stress isn't quite there. Pronunciation is clear, easy enough to understand. Some problems with the th sound, like the th and the, they come out as like tink or things like this. But stress timing and maybe lack of intonation, there are some nice bits of intonation, but that sentence stress is the thing that will stop him from getting a higher mark in pronunciation.
you know we need daily products such as
And products probably isn't the right word here, maybe groceries,
meat or bread. So that's why
bread.
every day I go to supermarkets to purchase some products.
So we get every day I go to the supermarket to purchase some products. We need bread, meat, so that's why every day I go to the supermarket to purchase some products. We get that, so that's why, again repeated. And now I think this is 4 or 5 times in part one. We've had, and so that's why I, and so that's why I. So be careful that we're not repeating it too much. And again, there's not a lot of, candidate has to repeat the idea to speak at length. Every day I go to the supermarket. We need bread and meat. That's why every day I go to the supermarket. So that's, yeah, not great development there. There is something in the rubric about candidates needing to rely on self-correction and repetition to keep going, and that's band 5, fluency and coherence, and that seems to be where the candidate is at the moment, around about there. And is there anything you don't like about shopping in a supermarket?
Um, no, I think in my village uh, there are not many
Again, notice the false starts that there are at repetition.
people. So and also I can find fresh products. So that's why
Again, so that's why.
there is there's nothing that I don't like.
So again, we get that same type of answer. There's nothing I don't like. Bit of extension. So that's why there's nothing I don't like. It feels almost formulaic. And apart from food, what might a big supermarket sell?
Can you repeat the question?
Apart from a very nice, polite request. Very nice. From food, what might a big supermarket sell?
I think toys. Yeah, because children want to play toys, so
Play with. They want to play with toys.
that's why people,
So that's why.
parents buy
So again, fighting over. So people, parents, very often has to fight over words, over that word choice. That even basic language isn't readily accessible
toys for their children in most cases.
in most cases. Okay, thank you. All right, I feel like I've been quite negative here, and that's only because I feel like the candidate is underperforming. There's nothing wrong with being, a B2, a low B2 student, and probably that's where we're going to end up. But there's nothing wrong with that. If you're I think if you're a very, very well trained intermediate student, you might even be able to get 5.5. And for that, if I know that the candidate's level is about intermediate and they get 5.5, probably I will say more positive things. This candidate, I think he is underperforming. I think his actual level is higher than his performance in the test. And so that's why maybe my commentary seems negative. And I don't, especially with younger learners, I don't want to be negative, but I do think, honest feedback is valuable feedback. I want to say at the age of 16, the candidate has reached a good level of English, and the candidate should be, pleased with that. The candidate has so much road in front of him. I don't have so much road in front of me. I'm about halfway through my life. This candidate is about, a fifth of his way of the way, a sixth of the way through his life. He has a lot of life ahead of him, and there's a lot of room for improvement. And I'm sure with a bit of practice and a bit of effort and a bit of studying, the candidate's going to speak English amazingly in a year or two. But grammatical accuracy, interestingly, before the test, the candidate said that grammar is probably his weakest part. I think grammar is his strongest part so far. I haven't really noticed any critical mistakes. Maybe he missed a verb to be once, but that's just once. Okay, fine. Used, past simple, used present simple when necessary, used present continuous. So a little bit of range, nothing spectacular, but decent range, but very good accuracy. A couple of nice, I wish I could. That's a complex structure. So if we get a few more accurate structures like this, it might push him to that higher level. So for me, grammar is his strongest point. Vocab, it does the job, sufficient for the task, but some things are a little bit awkward, like well experienced or cute teachers or products instead of groceries. Maybe it just sounds a little bit awkward. Pronunciation is all right, but there does seem to be a lack of stress timing. Certainly not enough for that 7, but certainly seems to be around that 6 mark. But the big problem is that fluency. Even with very basic questions, the candidate is falling over words. There's hesitation there, but the hesitation is not the problem. The reformulation, almost every sentence requires some reformulation, and also there's some repetition of ideas. I do X because da 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 da, and so that's why I do X. And it's like that's formulaic development, and that's gonna be a problem. Reformulation is when we say something and then we stop and then we try it again in a different way. If an example like, Glyn, what did you do yesterday? Oh, yesterday I went to yesterday me and my no, sorry, yesterday 24 hours ago my friend called, 24 hours ago, I called my friend and we decided, I called my friend and my friend decided that we should go to the decided that going to the cinema would, decided that it might be nice if we if we went to the cinema, right? And these reformulations, when they are, probably you are a little bit frustrated, a little bit annoyed listening to me saying that sentence. And that's what we mean by puts a strain on the listener. And I think those constant reformulations put, a noticeable strain on the listener. And we definitely don't want that in part 1. Having that in part 3, we expect that. Part 3 is difficult. There's cognitive pressure, difficult questions. We haven't thought about them. We have to fight with our brain to produce ideas. In part 3, we expect that. In part 1, what were you interested in when you were a child, or do you have a lot of hobbies? We shouldn't be fighting over that stuff. And so, yeah, part one is supposed to be a nice, relaxing, gentle introduction into the test to build confidence. And for me, the candidate is broken down quite a lot. Anyway, let's get. Oh, wow, 25 minutes already. Let's get into part two. I think I'll be a little bit faster with part two and part three. So the candidate needs to talk about a time when he did something as part of a team. This is a past focused thing. Lots of opportunities to use past time, reported speech, sequence of tenses, all of that good stuff. Let's see how the candidate does. Do you know when the time is up? Can you start speaking now, please?
Okay. I can remember when I was 10 years old, I joined a team, a
Putting strain, isn't it? You think like just say what you want to say.
debate team, yeah, and 6 months, 6 years ago, my head teacher organized a debate about a book called
Organized.
Mungli Kuzlar. And that time, that book was very popular among the young generation. And
So the pace of the speech is interesting because I think he's aware that he's falling over stuff, and because he's falling over stuff, then he's rushing, and so yeah, that isn't a natural. I'll give an example of this, right? So Glyn, what did you do yesterday? Yesterday, I went to the cinema with my friend because we wanted to watch a film because it was quite new in the cinema. So it's like we get reformulation, bit of chaos, and then attempts at speeding up the speech to compensate for the slow speech.
my friend said that, hey, let's join this debate. And
Okay, nothing wrong with using direct speech, but sometimes when candidates use direct speech, sometimes it can be evidence that it's a limitation. Reported speech or indirect speech is a lot more difficult in English than direct speech, right? And I notice this when I'm speaking Russian, it's not so bad. If I'm trying to speak Chinese, I never try to use indirect speech. I don't know any of the rules. So I just use direct speech. If you don't know what I'm talking about, it's like, oh, I spoke to my dad yesterday. My dad said, "Hey, Glyn, how are you?" And then I said to my dad, "I'm fine, thanks." But reported speech, like, oh, my dad asked me how I was and I told him I was fine. That indirect speech and reported speech to me sounds a bit more natural, although there's nothing wrong with direct speech. But I have that question in my head: is the candidate avoiding using indirect speech, reported speech, because of a grammatical limitation?
I said that, okay, I can be part,
Again, direct speech.
can be I can work.
I can work. And again, it sounds like I'm mocking or making fun of the candidate. I'm not. I'm just showing what I hear and the things that affect the way that I score, because I think that is the most useful thing. I try to be positive where I can, and I think, the candidate has done a great job of learning English so far, but my main role here is to be honest about what I hear as an examiner, just measuring the English, not judging the person, not judging the person's brain or anything like this, just analyzing that language and saying, okay, this is what I hear and this is why I give the scores that I give. Of course, sometimes it can be very difficult to listen to negative feedback because you think like, oh, you're attacking me. I please, not just this candidate, but for any candidate, if there is some negative feedback, please don't feel like it's an attack on you or your character or even your English. I'm just evaluating the English that I hear. Anyway, let's continue.
For our team. Yeah, and debate started, and I tried to do my best, and my head teacher and other teachers gave some feedbacks and advice about our
Feedbacks. Feedback is usually uncountable, and advice with a v.
Performance. And fortunately, we won.
Cool. Fortunately, I like this adverbial.
And my friends said that, hey, Hugo, all of them is your work because.
So fortunately we won, and my friend said, "Hey Hugo, all of them is your work." I don't understand that. All of them is your work. It's a grammatical mistake in there. All of them are, but what is them? All of them is your work. So I'm not, and I find it difficult to follow this story. I understand he joined a debate. He joined a debate club. He did well. They won. But and it was about some book that the head teacher asked them to read. But I still feel like there's a lack of detail there.
You gave book, yeah, and that book called Mulikuzlar. That time
Okay, do we need to repeat the name of the book? I don't know.
I had that book, and
I hate that books. I hated that book, or if it's multiple, I hated those books.
I gave that book my team. So,
I gave that book my team. So this is, we have two objects. I gave my team that book. Fine. I gave that book to my team. Fine. I gave that book my team. Not fine. I know in Russian it's your datelny padej, if you know Russian.
I think that
So candidate's out of ideas, right? You can quite clearly see now candidate is looking up and thinking, don't really know what more to talk about, and it's to be expected, I guess, but still a bit, well, I don't know, coming towards the end of part 2, aren't we?
and that's why we won
Again, coming back to that, that's why.
in that debate. Yeah, that time I
So kind of falls silent and then thinks, oh, I have to keep going. And it's good that he makes that attempt to keep going.
reckon that I was good part of team.
And you also, sometimes you notice when candidates are having difficulty, they start using their hands. And psychologically, this is because we don't have the words to explain it, but we are desperate to get the point across. And this is why you often see people, it's not the only, of course, we have to be careful that we don't misinterpret body language, but it is an interesting feature of disfluency, or an interesting feature when people can't quite access the right word, that they start using their hands a bit more. And you can kind of see it with the candidate here.
I was good part of team.
I was good part of team. A good part of the team.
Yeah, that's all.
Thank you. And you can see the candidate's reaction, right? The candidate, stay positive. I know it's horrible to do any type of test. It's horrible, but we want to stay positive in the body language. If you're beating yourself up, if you're negative and you give yourself negative thoughts, this is only going to make your performance worse. This is only a mock test. You don't need to worry too much about not performing to your standard. It's just a mock test. Try to relax and try to enjoy it, but that's terrible advice. People sometimes can't relax and people can't enjoy it, but no need to be negative on yourself. Just think, okay, part 2 is done, focus on part 3. All right, so you've been talking about this time when you were part of the debate club. Let's talk about teamwork in more detail now. Firstly, in what other situations might people work together as part of a team? Okay, so we had the debating. Other things, group projects at school, group projects at university. If you're part of a team in work, if you work in an office, you might be part of a team, like with a team leader. You might have your colleagues. If you join a club or a sports team, you might be part of a team. So even if you have a group of friends and you're, I don't know, going paintballing or something, or laser tag or something like this, if you're playing 2 against 2 in a game of pool or something like this, lots of times we work in part of a team. Let's see if we get a clear answer to this question.
So I think when people find a partner to enhance their knowledge,
When people find a partner to enhance their knowledge, again, it feels to me that enhance their knowledge is a pre-memorized bit of language that the candidate wants to use. For me, it's just not relevant. When a person finds a partner because they want to enhance their knowledge, no, no. The question is, in what situations might people need to work together as part of a team? When they play football together, when they work together, when they study together.
uh, they they work together. Uh, how can I say that? Uh, yeah, they work together.
So I can see the candidate's broken down, and I'm going to step in and try to help them out a little bit. You mentioned the example of debates, right? So when people join a debating club, they get together and work as part of a team. Can you think of any other situations when people get together and work as part of a team?
I guess that
Kind of become monotone now. I guess that it just sounds like there's a real lack of intonation now.
when I guess that when people
But then we get, I guess that, and that, I guess that, that sounds nice and connected and natural.
try to do their school homework, they
Cool. So focus in on that, right? So when people do their school homework, of course, some people do it alone, but I know in my school, for example, there's like a study group. And so those people meet, just like once a week or something like this. They get together, they compare notes, and they help each other with the homework. If there's some people struggling, they can ask their friends, and that like group dynamic really helps them.
they may work together.
But work together is not enough for part three, right? These are C1 questions. You say the question is like, in what situations might people work together? Oh, at school, they might work together. It's like,
And they can part of a team. Yeah.
they can be part of a team. And in what? So if 16-year-old Glyn was taking this test, 16-year-old Glyn would have huge problems in part three. Because idea formulation, idea generation, that is something that usually comes with world experience, and we can think about different things in the world because we've been on the planet long enough. We have experience, we've spoken to like a wide variety of people, we've traveled to many different countries, and we've listened to so many different people's perspectives. Now I know some 16-year-olds, especially these digital natives, these people who grew up with the internet, they do get exposed to a lot more information, and maybe they can formulate ideas. 16-year-old Glenn wouldn't know how to answer any part three question. So I also need to keep this in mind, but this will not affect my scoring, right? So unfortunately, I can't say, oh, the candidate 16, so I will give him a higher mark for idea development. Unfortunately, no. The IELTS, it's brutally objective. And yeah, for this question, we just don't have a meaningful answer. All we get is school. What ways can working in a team sometimes be more difficult than working on your own? So, in what ways can working in a team be more difficult than working on your own, right? Can't make decisions so quickly. Sometimes you can't even do what you want to do because you have to take into consideration other people's ideas. You also have to be careful about how you speak to other people because what you might say might be defined or might be interpreted as being too negative or criticism. So sometimes you have to bite your tongue, you have to sit down, and you have to accept things that you don't like. Those are ways in which it can be difficult to work as part of a team. Candidate's answer is
No,
no. In what ways? In what ways can it be difficult? Can it be more difficult to work as part of a team than working on your own? No.
everybody has their own behavior, and
Everyone has their own behavior. Doesn't really answer the question.
if your partners are not well behaved, uh,
Behaved, not behaved.
it may difficult to
May be difficult.
it may be difficult to
Good.
work together with them. Yeah,
So if they're not well behaved, but there's no comparative stuff. Yeah. So it's an attempt at answering, but no development there.
I think so.
And what skills or characteristics do you think make someone a good team member?
So I think um, every team member should be clever, and also I really appreciate people's team members' behavior, like loyalty and honesty.
Okay, so being clever, being loyal, being honest. Cool. Now I want to check that the candidate has thought about this, and so I ask the question.
I suppose that
My question is coming.
this above
I don't know what this above. I don't know what that means.
this above skills can help to
Oh, the above skills, maybe. It sounds like an essay, right? The above points.
work together.
Why does being clever or being intelligent help you to work together? Right, that's a reasonable question. Candidate has said, okay, if you want to be a good team member, you have to be clever. Doesn't explain why. So I asked, but why does a team member need to be clever?
Because if team members if team members are well behaved, you can
Well behaved is not the same as clever. So the candidate now is talking about, well, if they're well behaved, then da 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 da. So to me, this is evidence that the candidate, hasn't really produced a meaningful answer. Doesn't really can't explain the view of why it's important to be clever if you're working in part of a team. It just feels like he's just thought, okay, clever, loyalty, and honesty, those are good words to use in an IELTS test. But in part three, where it's a discussion and you have to justify your points of views, the examiner will notice that and think, well, let's see if the candidate really believes that honesty, or let's see if the candidate can justify the idea that being clever is important if you want to be a good team member.
you can also enhance your knowledge and
That's the second time we've had enhance your knowledge. The first time I felt it didn't work. The second time, it just feels like the candidate's relying on memorized bits of language that not really connected.
also it can help to get high score
Why? Why specifically intelligence, though?
in a debate club or home school
But we're talking about being a good team member. Why is it important for team members to be clever?
homework. So I think so.
Let's talk. And again, you can see the candidate's reaction. Watch the candidate's
I
reaction.
think so.
Look at the candidate's reaction. The candidate kind of thinking, fiddlesticks. I know it's unpleasant, isn't it? It's unpleasant when you're being recorded. This stranger from an unknown country is asking you these questions, and you think, "Damn it, I need to say something." It's difficult. It's really psychologically difficult. I know. I'm sorry, bro. I'm really sorry. It's tough. Let's talk about team sports now. I'm just going to go through one more question and then get into marks because I know part three is all like this now. In your country, which are more popular, individual sports or team sports?
Um, I suppose that individuals sport
And again, I suppose that is great language, right? It's really, I suppose that really, really nice. But again, it is noticeable that the candidate has difficulty finding. He's like, what's that word? I've used reckon. I don't want to use think because think is too easy. My teacher told me not to use think in the IELTS exam, so I suppose that, yeah, better to go with something simple that you can use well than to take too many risks and use things that are difficult for you.
Are becoming popular among the young generation.
Again, we get that among the young generation. It's a chunk of language that we've had earlier, and it's like copied and pasted here. But here, I think, among the young generation works both times, whereas enhance your knowledge, I felt didn't work either time. So, sometimes memorized language, if you're skilled, you might be able to use it in the right context. But generally, relying on memorized bits of language, it's not going to do you any favors.
Such as books or
Boxing. Box is the verb, to box. I box twice a week. The sport is called boxing.
karate or wrestling. Yeah, because now young people are very
Problems with that ver, right? The ver often comes out as advices, wary, abo. So candidate really has difficulties with that v sound.
now very they are trying to be healthy, and they think that they think that
Again, the think sounds like a so. They sink that.
this this kind of sports can help to improve their health. And also I heard some information about this kind of sport.
These kinds of sports.
They boxing and box and wrestling can help to can help to improve our cardiovascular system.
Okay, nice little cardiovascular system. Nice.
They keep our health.
They keep our health. So we had improve our health, and then repetition, a little bit of keep our health. Keep our health we don't use. Keep us healthy, that's fine, to keep us healthy, but keep our health, maintain our health maybe. Yeah, so I think I'm going to leave it there. We're at like 47 minutes and I want to give marks. And I remember the next questions, similar difficulties where there's no real meaningful response to the question. So I'm going to jump straight into marks here. So fluency and coherence for me is an obvious 5. It's not good enough for the 6, unfortunately. So there is regular stress on the listener, which is caused by constant too strong a word? Constant reformulations. You just can't pick a word and stick with it. You seem to be fighting over every word, phrase. So you seem to fight over so many different words. Many of your answers don't deal fully with the question. Either you're off topic, or there's just not enough development, or the development is formulaic. There's also a strong reliance on so that's why. So just be careful with those connectives. We don't want to give examiners evidence that we need to rely on the same type of connectives over and over. For me, 5. I think there are serious problems with fluency. Lexical resource, I think everything else will be 6 and quite easy to score, right? Lexical resource will say, okay, you have sufficient vocab to deal with a variety of subjects. It could even no, it's not 5. I think it is probably 6. Some lexical choices are awkward, and it appears that you sometimes rely on memorized language. We don't want to rely on memorized language at all. There may even be examiners that could give lexical resource a 5 because of the lack of development, because we're off topic so much. The candidate can't really go into subjects, and that could be a lack of vocab. So I think we have just about enough for the 6, but there are some people that may score it a little bit lower. Grammatical range and accuracy, I think, is 6. So despite some small slips with basic grammar, you have pretty good control. There are some cases of complex structures used to good effect. I don't think there's really enough grammatical range for the 7. There's definitely enough grammatical accuracy for the 7, but not enough range for the 7. And pronunciation, I'm going to go with 6 again. So the most important thing, in general, it is fairly easy to understand you, except perhaps for some words that contain a V sound. You know, when you use like a bow instead of above. I'm thinking, a bow? What do you mean bow? Like look, like Robin Hood uses a bow and an arrow. I think a bow? So, it's above. So, right, so sometimes those words with a V, they cause some confusion, but in general, it's easy to understand you. There's a lack of sentence stress, which is probably caused by fluency issues. I think if you improve your fluency, because when you're in a nice flow, it doesn't happen very often, but when you're in a nice flow, your pronunciation is better. But yeah, improve the fluency and your pronunciation will improve too. So yeah, overall, this gives a score of 5.5, lower end of upper intermediate. Now, the candidate has said that he took a mock test and got 6.5. Someone in the comments said that the candidate got 7 in a mock test. Quite a few people in the comments, I think, like supporting their brother, said that he deserves a score of 6.5 or 7 or more than 7 in some cases. I can't imagine people watching that test and thinking that's a 7. Now, people who know the candidate, right? People who know the candidate and know his English level, absolutely, they can say, yeah, that guy's probably C1. And maybe, I don't know, maybe outside of, maybe in his normal classes or with his teacher or with his friends or with his reading or listening, he might be at that C1 level. I'm only judging this performance. So I'm not saying that this candidate is a 5.5. I'm saying that this particular speaking performance is not close to a 7. I'm sorry to say it, but it's just not close to a 7. Yeah, overall for me, 5.5. Areas of improvement. You just have to simplify more in part 1, especially. Direct answers and development. Too much padding, too much, if I had to do, or when I would do. Just direct answers and development. Keep your ideas simpler. Don't worry about adding all of that language polish. The foundation of any good speaking test is responding to questions with direct answers that answer that question. Then the development. So we don't want to focus we have 2 things, style and substance. What did you have for breakfast this morning? Substance, porridge. What did you have for breakfast this morning? Upon waking, I felt like I was in the mood to treat myself to the most divine breakfast one could possibly imagine. I went to my kitchen and I thought, oh my goodness, I appear not to have anything of wonderful sustainability or sustenance. And so I made the decision that I would go for a rather more basic. It's like, okay. But substance first, style second. This candidate seems to be putting style first and then forgetting about the substance. Yeah. So you have to simplify more in part 1, especially. I think perhaps you need some practice of using English in a more informal setting. I think maybe you need a speaking partner, a buddy, someone you can speak to in English a couple of times a week where you're not focusing on academic subjects or it's not a test. You just have a friend who's like, hey, how are you? What did you do yesterday? Oh, you watched that? Oh, I haven't seen it. Is it any good? Just someone where you can use English as an actual tool of communication rather than it's a lesson or a subject that I study at school. Because to me, it seems clear that for you, English, as a 16-year-old, English is an academic subject for you. It doesn't feel like it's like a, a communicative tool for you. Forget about trying to use memorized language. The fluency and coherence is the big thing, but a lot of these, when you use that vocab, like, oh, it helps us to enhance our knowledge and all of that stuff, if it is memorized stuff, don't use it. Just, I know there's an argument that like all language is memorized. It's not. Not all language is memorized language. Some of it is just spontaneously produced in the moment. We shouldn't be approaching IELTS with a tactic, right? Before we go to our IELTS test, we shouldn't be thinking, okay, enhance my knowledge, or let my hair down after a hard day's work, or early to rise, early to shine, or the early bird gets the worm, or it's raining cats and dogs. I'm going to look for opportunities to. No, don't approach don't approach your test this way. So if you are approaching this test with like, I'm going to use, I am of the opinion that, or I am keen on, or I suppose, all of that stuff we should learn beforehand, but we should acquire it. And so it should emerge naturally in the conversation. It shouldn't appear mechanical or formulaic. So if you are trying to use memorized language, if this is your strategy, it's not working. And I would recommend not doing it. But yeah, overall 5.5, lower end of B2. My impression mark, I thought 5.5 when I first listened to it, but if I was teaching this student and this student came to me and this was like a placement test, I would put him in a B1 course, not a B2 course. Probably. Yeah, I think, the basic communication skills appear to be at B1. But on the IELTS scale, 5.5, lower end of B2. And again, I know that this feedback seems a little bit negative. And if you are watching, I think you're a nice guy. I think your English is very, very good. I just don't think your performance in this particular IELTS test was very, very strong, but still 5.5 is okay. I fully expect, with a little bit of work, just with a little bit of work with a good teacher, you should be aiming immediately at 6.5. You probably do have enough language in that brain. You just need to develop some communication skills a bit better. Try to relax more, try to speak in a more conversational, informal way. And I think, you'll see immediate improvement where you'll be hitting that like 6.0, 6.5. If you had a year of practice and a year of really good studying, I don't see any reason why you can't get that 7. But for me, at the moment, this performance is 5.5. And yeah, if it appears as though I'm a little bit too negative or a little bit too critical, I'm sorry for that, but I'm just trying to give you a nice, clear, honest opinion of what an examiner sees in your language. Anyway, if you would like your own free practice IELTS speaking test with 1 hour of feedback, or if you'd like me to check your IELTS writing tasks, then I collect all of my candidates from my Telegram channel, Expert Examiner. All candidates are chosen at random. So if you'd like to participate, you have as much chance as anybody else, but you will need to join that Telegram channel, Expert Examiner. A link to that Telegram channel is in the description below. More videos from me soon. But for now, bye-bye.